And now part 2 of The Fifth Dimension. If music were to sound like America, it might sound like The Fifth Dimension, at least in the 1960s. That's a quote from David Brown of Rolling Stone in 2021. And there were so many 60s groups that had great success. They were really struggling by 1969 to have any chart hits. We're talking groups like the Monkees, the Association, the Byrds, the Beach Boys, the Turtles. All of them were failing miserably on the charts. And by 1970, they were being replaced by other acts like Zeppelin and Elton John and Three Dog Night. So there was kind of a change of guard here, and The Fifth Dimension kind of bridged that. And as far as American music goes, I think that quote by David Brown, the couple other groups that could lay claim to that title would be, I suppose, the Beach Boys, as an American band, or their music sounding like America. Also, Creedence Clearwater Revival. So those are groups that are in that discussion, but I think that as far as sales, popularity, and just overall appeal, The Fifth Dimension was one of the few groups that was able to cross over into the new decade. 1970 brought a label change for The Fifth Dimension as Johnny Rivers sold Soul City Records to Bell Records. So this was the first significant change for them, and one of the things that was done, Soul City put out a greatest hits package. Now, as many of you know, the greatest hits package for a 60s group is typically the death knell. That's the nail in the coffin for their career. That didn't happen to The Fifth Dimension. It includes all the big hits through 69, including The Worst That Can Happen. Now that was a song that was a hit for the Brooklyn Bridge. They put Fifth Dimension's version on this record, and the thing that I like about this particular compilation is they have The Worst That Can Happen, and that basically segues into Wedding Bell Blues. So a nice little touch that they add. So I would, if you're gonna buy any vinyl, this would be a wonderful place to start. Now this album charted very well, and The Girl Song was a single released off this to help support the record. Now, one of the things by 1970, or any group set in the late 60s, being on the right political side was very important to one's marketing, one's brand. This was even true back then. And The Fifth Dimension had accepted an invitation to play at the White House. And this was under the Nixon administration. And I guess this firmly put them in the establishment group category. Not that that's a surprise to any of us, but here's what Florence LaRue had to say. She said, "It was an honor to perform for the President of the United States, but he wasn't necessarily the president of our choice." So they were always very diplomatic, and I think they took it for what it was. I think it still was a bit of an issue for them because the first single off their upcoming album, which is this, Portrait, we'll talk about this in a moment. The next single was basically a topical song called The Declaration. And this also was, it was a medley with The Change Is Gonna Come and People Gotta Be Free.
That among thee are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
So the first part of the song is the Declaration of Independence set to music, and that goes into the Sam Cooke song, A Change Is Gonna Come, followed up with the rousing finale of People Gotta Be Free, the Rascals song. So this was a longer track, and this was released as a single, and it only hit number 60. So you can see how, I don't know, that people appreciated some of these types of establishment bands doing these kind of songs. I think it worked for some, but by 1970, if you were doing it, I mean, you're clearly late on the bandwagon. And consequently, the song was banned from the Armed Forces radio.
Take my heart and take my soul, giving you complete control. If you want to see me do my thing, pull my string. Save the children, save the country, save the country.
Those were the next two singles, Puppet Man and Save the Country. Save the Country obviously is another slightly political song. Both of these charted poorly, top 30, which is low for the Fifth Dimension, although Save the Country hit number 10 on the Easy Listening Adult Contemporary chart. Now all three of those singles were from the Portrait album, and this, as I said, was their first album for Bell Records. And all of these singles were not what Bell was expecting. They were expecting big hits. They were expecting this album to be a big seller, like their previous albums. And this album on the charts was only topping out at about number 60. So Bell Records, they released a fourth single that was not from this album, but a non-LP single.
On a hot summer day,
On the Beach in the Summertime was released in August of 1970, but it stiffed at number 54. And this is one of my favorite songs by the group. I've always loved this track. It reminds me and harkens back to the song Hot Fun in the Summertime by Sly and the Family Stone. Didn't do nearly as well. It did chart high in the adult contemporary chart, though, at number 12. So we see this older, easy listening crowd supporting them a little bit more. Now, one of the things that did happen that was lucky for both Bell and for the group is a New Orleans DJ started playing one of the album tracks off of Portrait, and it became a regional hit, and Bell decided to release it nationally.
But all I do is cry.
One Less Bell to Answer was the hit they really needed. It hit number 2 on Billboard and number 1 on the adult contemporary chart, and established Marilyn McCoo as kind of the de facto torch song singer of popular music at this time. And great song, and it's a Backrack David song. And because of the success of that song, this album started to rise in the charts. Topping out earlier at number 60, it rose all the way to number 20. So Bell gave a sigh of relief on that. And I just want to talk a little bit about this record because it's got a striking cover. And they hired Leroy Neiman, a famous painter, to do this cover. And his work, it was popular at the time, and he did a series of other paintings of the group that are displayed on the inner jacket on this gatefold. And all of his work was always very colorful, and it really fits their music. Now, one of the reasons this album did chart poorly initially is because it had to compete with this album. This Greatest Hits album was released roughly the same time. So that's never easy to do. But we also see, as we saw with One Less Bell to Answer, this album sounds a little more individual. And there's a song on here where Lamont McLemore actually co-writes. It's the first composition by a group member. And we see Florence LaRue taking lead vocal on This Is Your Life.
Love you so. Love you so. This is your life. And always the music's unfinished by the heart. Wanting to be together, yet wanting to be.
A Love Like Ours was written by Lamont McLemore with Bob Alcivar. Alcivar was a pretty famous arranger of pop music during this time. He worked with the Association and with Fifth Dimension. This guy was really important to their sound, and he wrote that one with Lamont. Now, I happen to be acquainted with drummer Victor DiLorenzo from the Violent Femmes, and I had a discussion with him at one point. He knew Hal Blaine, and Blaine played on almost all these tracks. And he once asked Hal Blaine what his favorite track to ever play on was, and it was a song from this album. This jazzy workout called Dimension 5 recalls some of the earlier work on their other albums where it's more ensemble singing. Great track. I can see why Blaine maybe liked it because of that jazzy element to it. Now, one of the things that, obviously, the Fifth Dimension had some ups and downs here on the music charts, but one area nobody could really compete with them was in television appearances. For example, the group was featured on the show It Takes a Thief with Robert Wagner, and they performed 2 songs, Puppet Man and One Less Bell to Answer.
Al, what makes you think President Havos is going to be playing our record? He may not even like our kind of music.
You mean, how do I think they're going to get to him? Bomb and music all together at one time?
Right.
I don't know.
The Fifth Dimension's popularity was such that they got their own television special called The Fifth Dimension Special, An Odyssey in the Cosmic Universe of Peter Max. And this aired in spring of 1970. Guests included Glenn Campbell, Artie Johnson, Jim Nabors, Flip Wilson, Tiny Tim, and Liberace. If you see any clips of this show, it's very period, and it features a very pregnant Florence LaRue Gordon. They were regulars on the Flip Wilson show, they were on the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour, and they were even on Ed Sullivan. They dedicated one whole episode to the Fifth Dimension's 5-year anniversary. So that's a pretty big deal. Now, because of all the popularity and all of the good chart success, there was another album released by Soul City, their prior label. This is basically a compilation of album tracks, and not a very good one. It's got, in fact, 3 or 4 songs that I think are some of the worst covers, but, you know, They're trying to cash in because they don't have them on the label, on the roster anymore. So this is out one record that maybe is a companion piece to the best of, but this is one I wouldn't really rush out to get. We are in February 1971, and their next album is released, and that's Love's Lines, Angles, and Rhymes.
Love sunshine, love shine, touching the fire.
Now, I think in following the steps of the success of One Less Bell to Answer, they went this direction with another Marilyn McCoo torch song. And Love's Lines, Angles, and Rhymes, I think is one of her best vocal deliveries ever. She sings with a lot of sensitivity and a lot of feeling. One of her best moments, I think, on this album. But it only charted at number 19, number 6 on the adult contemporary chart. So that's still doing well. But the next single they released was a little more group-oriented. Light Sings only made it to number 44, but number 12 in the adult contemporary chart. So we're starting to see a pattern here. Some of the singles seem to be going down in chart success. And the album cuts on this record are hit and miss. They hit with the song Viva Torado and He's a Runner.
Viva you, viva me, and viva us. He's a runner, he's a runner. He's a runner, he'll run away.
Those are two of the better album tracks on this record, and they have a couple misses with the covers of a McCartney song and a Nilsson song. But this song is another self-penned song by Lamont McLemore.
The singer searches for the perfect meaning.
Love's Lines, Angles, and Rhymes hit number 17, and they had a little fun with the packaging here. Little fold out here. This album went gold. So they're doing very well still. And so much so that Bell Records put out a compilation of their own of some of the old Soul City music. So essentially, this is almost a carbon copy of this record. So this is by Soul City, this is by Bell. So you got these little compilations, these now of album tracks, and this comp is as bad as this one, I think. So it's a little bit confusing in the marketplace with all these records out there, but their basic records are doing very well. The Reflections compilation on Bell actually made it to 112 on the charts, so they were doing great even when a subpar comp like that can chart. I mean, you know you're doing well. And I think part of the success has to do with other TV appearances. So at this point, they were even offered their own TV special called The Traveling Sunshine Show, which featured the Carpenters, Merle Haggard, and Dionne Warwick.
Oh, yeah, it's called The Songs People Sing.
Oh, how do you play it?
We do your songs and you do ours.
Sounds like fun. Let's do it.
All right.
Do you know the way to San Jose? I've been away so long. I may go wrong and lose my way. Do you?
Come on, people. Come on, children. Come on down to the glory river. Gonna wash you up and wash you down. Gonna lay that devil down. Gonna lay that devil down.
What do you get when you fall in love? A guy with a pin to burst your bubble. That's what you get for all.
It's a great little clip of Dionne Warwick trading off songs with Florence and Marilyn. And for their next release, the very well-timed double live album came out.
You wonder if this heart of mine will lose its desire for you. Together, oh baby, let's find love. Baby, baby, let me.
Now, it's impressive that these singles charted so well. Never My Love charted at number 12 on Billboard, but number 1 on the adult contemporary chart. And Together Let's Find Love was at number 37 and then number 8 on the adult contemporary chart. So I think that's pretty darn good for live recordings. And Never My Love had only been 4 years removed from the Association's version. And around this time, David Cassidy had released the hit single Cherish, which was another association song. So there's a little resurgence there. Now, as you know, live albums were all the rage in the mid-70s, and this was an earlier live album that did really well, charted at number 32. I wouldn't say it's essential to their catalog. I'm sure many of you really like this record. And you get to know the group a little bit in a different way because they're talking in between songs, introducing medleys and such. They did a medley of What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love, along with the Beatles' All You Need Is Love. So there's this love medley, and there's a Jimmy Webb song in there. And then they did a whole Jimmy Webb medley, which included MacArthur Park. Looking to keep the momentum going, early 72, this is their next album individually and collectively. And I think what they're doing here is because the group is starting to focus on more individual members, particularly Marilyn McCoo's vocals on the singles. This album basically repeated that pattern. Last Night I Didn't Get to Sleep at All hit number 8 and number 2 on the Adult Contemporary chart, and the follow-up single did almost as well. These last two singles were their last flirtation with Billboard's top 10 as they started to chart lower. Generally speaking, the Adult Contemporary charts treated them better and those singles charted higher. But this was 1972, this was kind of the last hurrah of their very big hits. Individually and collectively hit a respectable number 58 on the charts. But what they did, surprisingly, was come out with another greatest hits version. Here we have the garishly packaged Greatest Hits on Earth. So this focuses on more of the recent hits, One Less Bell to Answer, Love's Lines, and Last Night I Didn't Get to Sleep at All. The one thing I will say about this record, very few groups can fill a greatest hits record with this many hits. We are now in early 1973 and they released their next single, Living Together, Growing Together.
Pulling together, working together, just building together.
That single only charted at number 32, and it was from the 1973 film Lost Horizon, a musical fantasy adventure film which was a critical failure and a box office bomb. So the failure of the film seemed to doom this album from the get-go. This album only charted at number 108, and subsequent singles charted very poorly as well.
Rearranged every room on every floor. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Can you find the Milky Way?
Unfortunately, the album tracks display previously covered territory.
Day by day, oh dear Lord, three things I pray. Open your window and take a deep sigh. Think about letting the rest of the world go.
This latest album has the title Living Together, Growing Together is one of your names of the songs. Does that have any significance for the group as a whole?
It didn't start out that way. Actually, we recorded it because it was the title theme of the movie Lost Horizons, and our record company wanted us to record it.
I was listening to your latest album, Living Together, Growing Together, in which all of you at one time or another have different parts, solo parts. Does this ease the tension as far as individual identity is concerned within the group, or are you very conscious of that? Or
Yes, we
giving
are
everybody a
conscious of
part.
it. Yes, I think it does help. We try to spotlight each member of the group as much as we can on our albums, and very much so on the stage, because each one of us was interested in performing before the group got together. And I think the only successful way that you can keep performers together is to give them a chance to be recognized.
This album has some high points, but it's a far cry from the cohesion of their 60s albums. Now, they did release a non-LP single shortly after this to inject some energy into their chart action.
And I flash back, oh, back to the time you were mine and we lived in a love song.
Now, the singles from this period do not have the optimism or freshness of their 60s work, and even though they were doing all these television appearances, this was starting to not really help them in the charts at all. They were appearing on The Flip Wilson Show, Soul Train, and The Bobby Goldsboro Show. Ron Townsend even made an appearance on the show Emergency. We are in early 1974 now, and they pressed on with their next album, Soul and Inspiration.
Don't you give your money to that lying, cheating man.
Mama's gone her way, daddy's gone his. I wonder how long it's been since they've kissed.
No love in the room.
The single Harlem missed Billboard's chart, but did chart at number 87 on the R&B chart, and No Love in the Room only bubbled under at number 105, but also hit number 11 on the adult contemporary chart, surprisingly. Now, by 1974, the Fifth Dimension was probably not the hippest group on the scene, you know, being outshone by performers like Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder, who were really still at the height of their game. And this album, Soul and Inspiration, is kind of an ironic title because it lacks soul and inspiration. It charted at number 55 on the R&B chart and missed Billboard entirely. This was their sixth album for Bell and their last, as Bell did not re-sign them after this. So they're on the downswing. They needed to find a new label, and they found ABC to do the next album, Earthbound.
Somewhere there's a world we've never found.
What makes this album notable is they reteamed with Jimmy Webb, looking to rekindle the magic. And the theme of this album, and the songs are constructed typical Jimmy Webb fashion. It does sound a bit 60s, but with an updated instrumental sound.
Hey baby, put some magic in my life. Yeah, I don't believe.
So you hear some synthesizers and effects that basically is an update of their sound, and Magic in My Life was the first single that Florence LaRue sang lead on. Now, like the Fifth Dimension, Jimmy Webb was also going through kind of a slow spot. He had done an album for the Supremes where he wrote all the songs called The Supremes, produced and arranged by Jimmy Webb. That was in 1972, and that only hit number 129. So Webb was doing solo albums now. He had made enough money where he could do those kind of things and not care about having hits for himself or charting high. And frankly, that showed with this album. It's a quality album, but the problem was the group was going through internal dissent. You know, for the last couple albums, you had the kind of separation of the players, with McCoo singing more leads. Other group members wanted some more time in the spotlight, and that made for some troubled waters. And consequently, this was the last album with Marilyn McCoo and Billy Davis Jr. Earthbound returned them to the charts, so it charted at 136, and it never was released on CD. So this is one of the albums that was very seldom heard after this initial release, and it's considered actually it's considered a solid record, partly because of the Webb continuity, I think, but they also give some very good performances, singing especially. So this is one to look for. The group led by Florence LaRue Gordon and Lamont McLemore continued, adding a couple new players, and they signed to another label. This was a one album deal here at ABC Records. They signed, of all places, with Motown. And they were given a song that they recorded, and Lamont McLemore was insistent upon trying to get them into the dance market, and this song darn near did it.
I run from it. I think about it all the time. Never let it out of my mind. 'Cause I love you, baby. 'Cause I got the sweetest hangover.
Love Hangover made it to number 80 and number 39 in the R&B charts, and it probably would have been the runaway hit that Diana Ross had with it. But when Ross caught wind of it, Motown, she used her muscle to outdo the Fifth Dimension's version, so hers ended up scoring higher and becoming the number one hit, as we all know, and the Fifth Dimension was out of luck. Now, they had added two new members, Danny Beard and Marjorie Barnes, and they were on the next record, Star Dancing. Meanwhile, Billy Davis Jr. and Marilyn McCoo were doing well on television. They had a hit of their own, You Don't Have to Be a Star to Be in My Show, which hit number one.
You don't have to be a star, baby, to be in my show.
Meanwhile, the Fifth Dimension carried on with yet another album in 1979, adding Lou Courtney as a lead singer, along with Terry Bryant. And this album also didn't chart. Lou Courtney was a fine singer. I think Lou Courtney was a songwriter, and he goes back to the early 60s, and he had some minor success through the years. I did a feature video on him. I'll leave a link to that video at the end. That was called The Best R&B Singer You Never Heard of Before. So Courtney was a legitimate singer, great performer, great writer, but he only contributed one song to this record. So by the end of the 70s, Marilyn and Billy had appeared on The Love Boat. Marilyn then got a job hosting Solid Gold for much of the 80s. Meanwhile, the Fifth Dimension basically became a cabaret act and have been touring under Florence LaRue to this day. That is my history on the Fifth Dimension. Still a group I listen to fairly regularly. I always keep coming back to them. And I just love the arrangements, I love the singing, and they've got great songs and some great songwriters. Now, if you're looking to get any of this stuff, what I can suggest, if you're a vinyl collector who's new to this group, you got the two greatest hits to choose from. This is features the 60s stuff up to the age of Aquarius, roughly. And this one includes all the top stuff from the 60s, including some of the very early 70s tracks here, like One Less Bell to Answer and Last Night I Didn't Get to Sleep at All. So this is probably the bigger hit and the one that you see more of. So both of these are great starting points. If you are looking for something a little more substantial, I would suggest this CD, the Definitive Collection. This is a double CD set, and it's got great packaging. It's got the full story in here, and the compilation goes into about the mid-70s. So it covers all the singles that you need, and I would say this is probably the best compilation that's out there. If you are interested in their individual albums on CD, most of them come with bonus tracks, at least the first 4 albums or so. So this is the only one I've got. I've downloaded a lot of the other ones from iTunes, some of those unreleased tracks, but some of those unreleased tracks rival some of the best album cuts on these albums. For those of you who really appreciate the work I do here, I do have some ways to help support this channel in a bigger way. Below I have a Patreon subscription that is available to check out. I also have a tip jar for a one-time donation, and I've got some merchandise that you can find at popgoesthe60s.com. And the cheapest way to support me is just to hit that subscribe button, so I always appreciate that, and your comments below also help. So please leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about this group, and there's plenty more to come here on Pop Goes the 60s.
Yeah.